Welcome to today's Explainer. You know, as someone who spends their life studying modern romance, I see this one specific, kind of agonizing psychological friction all the time. It's this absolute war between friendship, vulnerability, and timing. So today, we're diving into a really fascinating case study, the 12-year relationship of Ethan and Sophie. It's honestly a perfect mirror for how so many of us navigate the totally terrifying landscape of intimacy.
So, let me ask you a question. Have you ever been in love with someone for years and never told them? It's a heavy question, right? When we look clinically at Ethan's situation, there's this massive psychological block. His silence over those 12 years, it actually wasn't driven by the fear of rejection. No, it was driven by something way deeper. It was the terrifying realization that if she said yes, it would completely blow up their comfortable, safe reality. Because sometimes the possibility of getting exactly what we want is literally the most paralyzing fear of all.
Section 1. The fear of saying yes.
Okay, so their beginning was super common. First week of college, Sophie thought Ethan was incredibly arrogant, and Ethan thought Sophie just talked way too much. Classic enemies to lovers friction, or what psychologists call the propinquity effect. But here's the thing, that friction requires engagement. Those shared annoyances naturally evolved, and suddenly they were inseparable habits. We're talking morning coffee before class, late-night phone calls, weekend road trips, you name it. They essentially built the entire infrastructure of a relationship, just without the title.
12, let that sink in for a second. 12 years. That is an immense amount of time to spend as just friends. Over a decade. College ended, jobs changed. They packed up apartments, and other relationships naturally came and went. But the one constant? Each other. And for almost that entire 12-year stretch, Ethan kept a massive secret buried right behind his comfortable role as the best friend. He was completely, hopelessly in love with her.
And the irony here is just, well, it's painful. His friends knew. His family knew. His coworkers knew. Literally everyone in Ethan's orbit was fully aware of his feelings, except for the one single person who actually mattered. He had compartmentalized these romantic feelings so well that he basically lived in two completely different realities. The one in his head with his peers, and the incredibly safe one he lived out with Sophie.
Section 2. When the catalyst arrives.
In relationship psychology, if you've got a stagnant status quo, you usually need a severe external disruption to force any real action. And for Ethan, that disruption came on a totally ordinary Tuesday. It was a phone call. But her voice had that, that stomach-dropping tone that signals everything is about to change. She said, "Ethan, I got the job. It's in London." At first, he smiled, because she'd been chasing this dream for years. But the second she said London, his world just went quiet. His safety net was about to be dragged across the Atlantic.
The timeline of their farewell was just agonizing. In the 3 weeks before her flight, there were loud farewell dinners, co-worker parties, basically everyone loudly celebrating her success. But internally, Ethan was drowning in profound anticipatory grief. It is a very specific, weird kind of psychological pain, grieving the absolute loss of something you never even possessed in the first place.
Which brings us to the night before the flight. They're at their favorite diner. Same booth, same coffee, same jokes. But underneath all of that, the unspoken tension was just incredibly heavy. After dinner, they're walking through the empty streets, and the behavioral cues peak. Sophie literally stops walking, looks right at him, and asks this piercing question. "Why do you look so sad?"
Man, he wanted to tell her the truth right there. But breaking the inertia of 12 years of silence? That is tough. So instead, he gave this tragically safe response. "I'm going to miss my best friend." Sophie smiled back, but if you really look closely at these moments, there's an unacknowledged disappointment in the eyes. And Ethan? He utterly failed to decode that disappointment in that crucial, fleeting moment.
Section 3. The Airport Confession.
Let's break down Ethan's exact psychological breaking point here. Step 1. They share a long hug at the security checkpoint, the kind of hug that feels profoundly final. Step 2. She says, "Take care of yourself, Ethan," turns around and walks into the crowd. And that is when Step 3 hits him like a freight train. Something inside him finally snapped. In a fraction of a second, his fear of regretting this silence forever suddenly outweighed his 12-year fear of losing her. That psychological shift, that's what sparked the frantic sprint. He ran past confused travelers, past yelling security officers, leaving 12 years of excuses in the dust.
He catches her literally right before her gate. Out of breath, he shouts her name. She turns around, and the world just stops spinning.
There was no grand speech, no cinematic performance, just the raw, absolute simplicity of 3 words. I love you. Delivered exactly 12 years late.
For a moment, she just stared at him. Then the emotional release hit. She laughed in total disbelief, tears welling up, and she said, "You idiot! I've been waiting years for you to say that." When he asked if she meant it, she said, "Yes, I love you too." They just stood there laughing and crying. It's a beautiful but honestly tragic illustration of 2 people who wasted so many years simply being paralyzed by their own fear.
Section 4. Love means letting go.
But here's the twist. Despite everything, Sophie still got on the plane. Yeah, it's a stark, beautifully grounded reality check that totally subverts that standard romantic comedy trope, right? You know, where she abandons her life's ambition at the terminal? No. She confessed her love, and then she boarded her flight to London.
And this highlights a critical dynamic of secure attachment and relational maturity. Real love, it's not about stopping someone from chasing their dreams just to validate your own feelings. It's about letting them soar and having the profound security to believe they'll come back. Letting her fly to London was actually the ultimate proof of the true depth of Ethan's affection. He loved her enough to not stand in the way of her success.
Section 5. The right timing.
Fast forward exactly 1 year later. We're at another airport, another crowd. Ethan is standing near the exit, holding flowers, trying super hard not to look nervous. And then he finally watches Sophie walk toward him, smiling, coming home. It's a quiet, intensely grounded reunion.
And again, no dramatic speeches here, no over-the-top movie magic moment. Just 2 people, completely stripped of those earlier avoidant fears, finally and actively choosing each other. This simple reunion is the definitive truth of their story. They didn't need any external validation to prove they'd finally made the right choice.
This leaves us with such a powerful takeaway about the complex intersection of modern romance. Sometimes the right person arrives early and the right timing arrives later. It perfectly captures that friction between finding the right person versus experiencing the right circumstances. Ethan and Sophie absolutely had the right person on day 1 of college, but they didn't have the maturity, the courage, or the right timing for over a decade.
Which brings us to our final thought to wrap up today's explainer. I really want you to reflect on this in the context of your own modern romances. Is real love about finding someone at the perfect moment, or is it about finding someone worth waiting for, no matter how long it takes? Relationships are rarely as perfectly timed as we want them to be. But if there's anything Ethan and Sophie's case study teaches us, it's that courage and patience, even when they arrive 12 years late, can still be exactly on time. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Keep reflecting, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.